I don't even know why this is even being debated, quite frankly. It's actually quite disturbing that as a city, we're having a conversation about protective speech in America.
The mayor bristling this morning as questions continue to be raised about his housing and real estate chairman Byron Sigcho-Lopez and a controversial event at which he spoke.
You support Alderman Sigcho-Lopez speaking in front of a group that burns American flags.
I support the First Amendment. Anyone in this country has a right, and if any, to speak their political opinion and position, and we should be protected.
Wednesday, Sigcho-Lopez told Marian Ahern that he spoke after a flag was burned at a protest organized by a group called Behind Enemy Lines, who opposes the Democratic National Convention in Chicago and Israel's war in Gaza.
What they were upset about was the banner behind me that I heard from Alderman Teleferro, and they want me to apologize for something that I wasn't witness of. I cannot apologize for something I didn't do.
But Taliaferro and a group of 8 other aldermen are calling for Sigcho-Lopez to step down or be fired from his leadership post in the Johnson administration, an idea the mayor rejects.
Someone in my leadership team like Byron Sigcho-Lopez, who's been fighting for affordable housing, makes him qualified.
Johnson then lashed out at council members calling for Sigcho-Lopez ouster.
Under my administration, I fully expect that the city council recognizes its responsibility and that it will not move forward in the type of fascist forms of expression that have left too many of our countries in desperate peril.
The aldermen have called for a special city council meeting to discuss Sigcho-Lopez and his chairmanships. Mayor, I've got to ask you about Alderman Sigcho-Lopez. A number of his colleagues are calling for a sanction of some kind because of the incident involving the flag and because of some of the comments he's made that have offended other members. What do you think should happen in this case?
Well, first of all, it's important that as a democracy that we don't lose sight of one of the core elements of democracy. And one of the core elements of democracy is actually having the First Amendment to be able to have protective speech. Anything short of protective speech would undo this experience that we are in the midst of right now. Now, as far as, people taking offense to someone's presentation, I remember when President Obama was being ridiculed because of comments that his pastor made in the pulpit. Do we really want to have a society where someone's comments or someone else's comments that happen to be in the presence of someone else, that becomes a repudiation of that particular person? I would find that to be morally reprehensible and irresponsible.
But President Obama denounced those comments. Sigcho-Lopez has not denounced the group that held that protest. He has said the person has every right to burn a flag there. Do you believe that it's appropriate for a city councilman to speak at an event like that and to support a group that burns American flags?
Well, again, we're talking about protective speech here.
No, I asked you a question. Do you support that?
Do I support protective speech?
Do you support Alderman Sigcho-Lopez speaking in front of a group that burns American flags?
I support the First Amendment. Anyone in this country has a right, and if any, to speak their political opinion and position, and we should be protected. The larger question that I would ask is, are we okay as a society that would curtail and disrupt someone's First Amendment right? Look,
even if it disrupts city council and has created rancor among the members who say that they don't want to work with someone like Alderman Sigcho-Lopez.
There are individuals who make expressions all the time that I disagree with, that I work with every single day. If people are as petulant as someone who would be unwilling to engage with someone that they disagree with, we wouldn't be standing here today. Do you know how many conversations black leaders have had to have with racists? It's multiple, right? People have a right, though I may disagree with this particular presentation, if people want to march through the streets, and they have, with nooses and other forms of objects that will be offensive to people, I can be offended, but also understand the fundamental value of this country, which is protected speech.
You do disagree with that?
I just want to clarify, because it seemed like you were going at something here. Do you disagree with this expression that was made outside City Council?
Look, this is not expression that I make. So,
No,
but this
do
is.
you disagree with? I mean, I think everyone
Slow
agrees
down
with
for a
the
second
right
for it, yeah.
to
Yeah.
free speech.
Yeah.
But do you disagree with this expression of it, even though it's protected?
Look, as I said, whether it's a noose or burning a flag, these are not particular expressions that I engage in. But if we're talking about someone's protective right, in my opinion, on a particular thing, I just want to make sure that we are clear. Yes, people's rights should be protected. And yes, as mayor of the city of Chicago, I have been around people who express their First Amendment right that I disagree with. But that doesn't make us, it's actually what makes our country unique, is that I could be offended by someone's presentation and also recognize that they have a fundamental right to express that. I don't even know why this is even being debated, quite frankly. It's actually quite disturbing that as a city, we're having a conversation about protective speech in America versus the fact that the Inflation Reduction Act is one of the largest investments that have been made in modern political history. We're talking about $8.8 billion to go into housing, to go into jobs, a clean environment, and we're having a conversation about the First Amendment. Now, as a social studies teacher, I am nerding out on this conversation on what the First Amendment actually does. As mayor of the city of Chicago, I'm more excited about the millions of dollars that we are investing into the people of Chicago. The city of council will have a $1.25 billion bonds deal in front of them that will ultimately make a determination of whether or not people get to live in this city, can afford to live in this city, and our economic corridors can be revitalized. Now, we can discuss those things, or we can have an after-school special discussing the First Amendment rights.
So let me just follow up then, since I do get a follow-up. As part of this, Byron Sigcho-Lopez has aligned himself with organizations that are calling for the DNC to be canceled and for saying there should be violence there. This is someone on your leadership team. Do you believe someone on your leadership team should be aligning themselves with this kind of advocacy?
Someone on my leadership team like Byron Sigcho-Lopez, who's been fighting for affordable housing, makes him qualified. Now, as far as other political engagements, there are people in the city council who have stood with open, racist, white supremacist organizations. I actually belong to an organization that, quite frankly, has deep religious roots in this country. There are some people who may not particularly care for some of my religious views. If we are literally having a debate over not just political ideology, but someone's freedom to speak, I don't mean to sound super dramatic, but this is quite disturbing that if we're debating right now whether or not someone's political ideology or position should determine whether or not they get a right to serve if they've been duly elected. Now again, I'm a history teacher. There are some really bad practices of that type of ideology and frame that have left women, people of color, people with disabilities destroyed. Under my administration, I fully expect that the city council recognizes its responsibility and that it will not move forward in the type of fascist forms of expression that have left too many of our countries in desperate peril.
But just because
Thank
you
you all
can't say
very
something
much.
doesn't mean you should. I guess that's the question. Just because you can't say something,
All right,
you
that was
should.
your follow-up.
And he's